Yo, welcome back to the channel, boys and girls. In today's video, we are taking a look at Yoeleo's next or latest generation of wheels, which is their DB Pro SL2 generation of wheels. Now, these are an update to the previous line of Pro wheels, and so far I've ridden these wheels at least a couple of 100 miles or so, and these are pretty interesting given the specs, the price, and the weight on these wheels. So of course, in today's video, guys, we're going to be going over all those specs. We're going to get these bad boys weighed out, and then of course we're going to be taking these wheels out on the road so I can give you some of my first initial thoughts on these wheels, because they are very interesting given the price point. Oh, and one last thing too is Yoeleo, they did send these wheels out to me for testing and review, so huge shout out to them. But without further ado, let's begin. If you have been following this channel for the last 4 years, you will know that my very first video on this channel was me reviewing a set of 50mm depth rim brake wheels from Yoeleo. I love those wheels so much. I love the value, the price point, the quality of those rim brake wheels, that the very next 2 videos after that was me building up purchasing my Yoeleo R6 rim brake frame set. So Yoeleo has a long history of building things to a certain price point, to a certain value, and you end up getting a lot of value for your money with both their frame sets and both their wheels. So it is interesting that 4 years later that I'm returning back to be able to test out and review Yoeleo's latest line of wheels from those original rim brake 50mm depth wheels 4 years ago. So as I mentioned in the introduction of this video, guys, this is Yoeleo's next generation, their generation 2 line of Pro wheels. And Yoeleo is not trying to be the absolute pinnacle of wheel performance. What they've been doing, and what they've been doing well, at least for the last 4 years, is they're offering up a set of wheels and a line of wheels that's going to be very compelling given the price point, and they're trying to be the leader when it comes to value. That's what Yoeleo is really good for. They're not trying to be on the absolute cutting edge of technology. They're not trying to design or sell their wheels to be a weight weenie type of wheels, but they're just going to offer up a lot of value for what you get. So with this generation 2 line of Pro wheels, Yoeleo offers these wheels in 4 different variants, and what I mean by that is they come in 4 different depths. The most shallow line is a 35mm depth wheel, and then they go all the way up to 88mm deep, maybe if you're doing some sort of triathlons or TTs. The ones I have is a step just below that. These are the 60mm depth wheels, and with these 60mm depth wheels, when it comes to the specs, this is what you get. So you get an external width on these wheels at 32mm wide, which is very modern in 2024. Internal width on these is 23mm, which essentially plumps out my 28C Continental GP5000 to about 30mm. That's pretty typical. As far as the spokes goes, you do get steel spokes. I believe these are the black pillar wing steel spokes. They're very serviceable, very similar to the Sapum CX-Ray spokes. As far as the hub internals, you are getting steel bearings. And then moving to the rear of the bike, when still speaking about the hubs, you get a 36-tooth star ratchet design. Let's talk about price. So Yoeleo has made the interesting decision to stagger the price point depending on the depth of wheel that you get. So if you opt for the 35mm depth version, those are going to run you $999 USD, basically $1,000. And then the very deep TT version, the 88mm depth wheels, those are going to run you $1,099. And then the one I have, the C60, these are going to run you $1,499 USD. Now, the turnaround time on these is, according to the website at the time of this video, is production takes about 30 days from the time that you purchase this. My recommendation is I would just wait until these wheels are actually in stock before purchasing, because one of the downsides with Yoeleo, and I've discussed this in some of my previous videos with Yoeleo, is they have a tendency to take your money and then tell you there's going to be a delay on your product. So if you want to avoid all the headache of that, and this is also something for Yoeleo to take note themselves, is basically just wait until the wheels are in stock before purchasing. That way you don't have any disappointment, you don't have your expectation ruined by extreme delays, but nonetheless you're getting a very modern set of wheels for about $1,000 USD. In the past few weeks on this channel, you've noticed that this will now be the third set of wheels that I have tested and reviewed that have ran steel spokes. So again, you might be wondering why this sudden change to go back to steel spokes. And it comes down to a couple of reasons. One is the price point. Obviously, running steel spokes is going to be cheaper in theory than running carbon bladed spokes. And the second reason is versatility. I can't stress that enough. At this point, I have tested and reviewed probably almost 30 different wheels. And obviously that is a luxury by being able to review all these different products. But if you are the consumer, maybe you're someone who just doesn't have a large budget to buy all these different wheels, maybe you simply just don't have the room wherever you live at to have all these different types of wheels. This is where the versatility aspect is going to come into play. You figure because these wheels are 23 millimeters internal, 32 external, and then they have the steel spokes as well as that star ratchet design, which is going to be easily serviceable. That means you'll be able to use these wheels in a large variety of settings. Now for myself, my gravel bike is Yoeleo's G21 frame set, so I do plan to run these on that gravel bike as well. And I most certainly did not want to run a gravel bike with carbon spokes on it. So having these wheels be steel spoked just makes a lot of sense. And like I said, the value aspect of these wheels cannot be denied. Let's get it on. Let's get it on. Hey, shout out to Marvin Gaye with the classic LP, Let's Get It On, with such bangers as, of course, Let's Get It On. Another banger on this album is the song Distant Lover. Distant Lover. Anyway, all right, guys, let's go ahead and weigh out these Yoeleo C60 DB SL2 wheels. Just a quick recap on the specs on these wheels. So we have 60 millimeters deep for both the front and rear wheel, 32 millimeters external, 23 millimeters internal width. We have black pillar wing steel spokes. And we also have a 36 tooth star ratchet hub. And then the advertised claim weight on these wheels for the 60 millimeter version is like 1330 plus or minus like 5 grams. So let's go ahead and weigh out the rear wheel. And we are rocking with XDR free hub for SRAM. All right. So for the rear wheel, we have 731 grams. Try not to make too much noise here. All right, yikes. And then for the front wheel, we have, again, also 60 millimeters in depth. The front wheel, we have 642 grams, which gives us a grand total of 1,373 grams. So you figure that is about, what is that, like 43 grams heavier minus 5, so we're talking like 38 grams heavier, but nonetheless, that's what we got, 1373. So let's continue. Some other small tidbits that I really appreciate that Yoeleo did is number one, when it comes to the exit port on the rims themselves, the port itself is really nice and firm and tight. No diddy. And what I mean by that is when I have the inner tubes in here, I typically have to run some electrical tape to keep this from rattling around. But Yoeleo did a really good job with the tolerances to the point that I actually don't even need to add electrical tape because the port is nice and small. Another thing that Yoeleo did, even given this price point, is when you purchase these wheels, they do come with some extra spare spokes, which is really, really nice. You do get a product manual as well. And then when it comes to the bearings or the end caps for both the front and rear hubs, Yoeleo actually greased them, which is really, really nice. I know this is something that a lot of the other YouTubers have commented on and made criticism about, because a lot of these Chinese brands, at least in the past, have not made any considerations to having to grease or lube up the end caps. So really nice job, Yoeleo, on those front for those 3 different points. I really like the satin finish on these wheels. It matches the satin finish on my Tarmac SL8, which I've been enjoying for this past summer. I like that Yoeleo really thought about the production and design of these wheels and all the small details, because Yoeleo realizes that their bread and butter when it comes to selling products is their wheels. Sure, they have the gravel bike like the G21, their R12, which I have reviewed last summer, but their bread and butter, from what I can tell myself, is their wheels. Now, one of the other points of criticism I do want to mention is the font and sort of their design choice for having this Yoeleo Pro C60 design. These do look kind of similar to the design that Shimano uses on their their Dura Ace line of wheels. The font and everything is kind of similar, but it is what it is. Let me know in the comments if you guys know which factory or where Shimano gets their Dura Ace wheels produced. I'm really interested because I was talking to one of my industry contacts online. He says that Shimano has their own production line or their own factory to produce those wheels. I suspect that their wheels are probably just made in China, but please let me know in the comments down below. Free hub sound test on these Yoeleo C60 DB SL2 Pro wheels with the 36 tooth star ratchet engagement. I have a prediction. My prediction is this is going to be one of the loudest, if not the loudest, free hub you've ever heard on this channel, based on the previous set of wheels that I've tested from Yoeleo. But let's find out. Let's go! Yo, that is ridiculously mean. So let's continue. So a price point of $1,050 USD, a very modern and wide set of rims, and then a real world weight that's actually lighter than some of the other carbon spoked wheels I have tested on this channel. And these wheels are much deeper than those. But the question becomes, how do these Yoeleo C60 Pro wheels feel out on the road? So let's go ahead and do that right now. We'll take these out on the road and I will give you some of my initial thoughts on these wheels. At the time of this video, I have now spent hundreds of miles with these Yoeleo C60 Pro SL2 wheels. I have done everything from, of course, long endurance rides to sprints to fast-paced group rides where we've done some crazy intervals as well. And to be honest, things like carbon spokes, ceramic bearings, you really won't be able to tell the difference between those compared to steel spokes or steel bearings. Of course, you will be paying a premium for those amenities, but honestly, unless you are really pushing your wheels to the absolute limits, you won't really be able to detect those things. Ceramic bearings, probably not, but for carbon spokes, you might be able to tell just a little bit of difference when it comes to that acceleration, the little bit of added stiffness when you are out of the saddle. But for day-to-day use, you're just really not going to be able to tell those differences. And that's where these wheels make a lot of sense for just everyday use. These wheels feel fantastic. They are plenty stiff. They're light enough for what you need. They're very versatile as well. One quick side note, my buddy Omar and I, he's someone that I have featured on this channel in the past. Him and I were doing some short VO2 intervals not too long ago. We were probably sitting at about 325, 330 watts, and he was drafting behind me. And after we finished our intervals, I remember him saying specifically, "Oh my goodness, the sound that those wheels make on your bike, they sound incredible." And he was absolutely right. When you are up to speed, say when you are anywhere above 25 miles an hour or faster, the sound that these wheels make, they sound so aero. They sound like that. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Don't make fun of me. But these wheels definitely sound aero. And I only have a handful of wheels that make that noise. These wheels are plenty fast. They definitely are going to offer up the stiffness that you're going to expect. I'm just really impressed with where Chinese brands are today in 2024 when it comes to performance and the specs that they offer on these wheels, particularly at this price point. The crosswinds on these wheels is very manageable. But with that being said, let's talk about how these wheels will stack up to some of the other wheels that I have featured on this channel in the past, because I'm sure some of you guys are probably curious. So first off, let's start with the king of all the wheels I've tested, which are my Craft Racing Work 50/60 wheels. Now the thing with those wheels are significantly more expensive than these. They have carbon spokes, they have ceramic bearings, and they are just fantastic. However, the one downside with those Craft wheels is they do not do well in crosswinds. They are actually some of the most unstable wheels that I have tested at that depth compared to some of the other ones, because they are just so light. They feel like a sail. Now, comparing those wheels to these Yoeleo wheels, even though the Yoeleo wheels are 60 in the front and 60 in the rear, these seem to manage crosswinds very, very well. We've had some weeks currently where it's been crazy windy, I think due to some of the hurricanes down in Florida, but the crosswind stability on these Yoeleo wheels are very, very good. Next up, let's talk about the Far Sports Evo C6 wheels that I have recently featured on my channel. These wheels feel very similar to those, being that both of these wheels are steel spoke. I am going to give a little bit of the edge to the Far Sports in terms of stiffness. They do feel slightly stiffer than these. However, the difference between those and these is these have a slightly wider external width than the Far Sports wheels. So they're going to be just as versatile as those Far Sports wheels, and they're going to be a little bit more aero, being that these are 60 millimeters in the front and rear. And I just think that just as far as overall versatility, you can't go wrong with either of these, but these Yoeleo wheels are going to come in at a slightly, actually significantly cheaper price point. Next, let's talk about the Elite Wheels Drive, the Helix 68D wheels that I've recently reviewed. Those come in at almost a similar price as these, but those wheels are heavier. They're not going to be as versatile as these. Those are very much a specific flat road type of wheel. So if that is what you need, where you need a deep section wheel, you live somewhere where it's very flat, you don't need the versatility, then those make a lot of sense. But the Yoeleo wheels are going to win over those hands down due to the versatility and because they are not some sort of extreme depth. Now, the final one I want to talk about is my Magine XR Ultra Black wheels. Now, those are similar spec to these, as well as similar price as well, because those come with the steel spokes. These are still going to be more versatile of a wheel simply because they have a wider external width. They have a similar internal width, but then these Yoeleo wheels come with steel spokes. And again, going back to that steel spokes, being able to have the versatility to run these wheels for both gravel, for road, and everything in between is going to be a detail that a lot of consumers are going to appreciate. So as far as the performance and how these wheels feel out on the road, they feel really, really good. Obviously, with having steel spokes, they're very comfortable. And if you want to have a little bit of extra stiffness, of course, you can always just pump up the tire pressure, just maybe 1 or 2 more PSI. I really love the depth of these, having 60 in the front, 60 in the rear. Where I live at here in Chicago, where it's very flat, that just makes a lot of sense as well. The main downside to these wheels, or even just Yoeleo in general, is they do have a reputation, unfortunately, of having delays when fulfilling customers' order long after the customer has given Yoeleo their money. And I've talked about this before in videos in the past with Yoeleo. So just keep in mind that if you are interested in these wheels or any other products from Yoeleo, just shoot them an email first. Just ensure that the product that you want is actually in stock. And if they tell you that it's going to be 30 days to fulfill the order, I would just be very cautious because until I hear otherwise, that Yoeleo has made improvements like they've said with fulfilling their orders, as far as I know, they are still dealing with delays. So just keep that in mind. But if the product is in stock and Yoeleo can confirm that, then for sure, these are a fantastic buy in the specs. And again, guys, I can't stress just the overall versatility you're going to have with these wheels. Similar to the Far Sports wheels that I recently tested because they're so wide and they come with steel spokes, being able to have a set of versatile wheels where you don't have to worry about day in and day out, which wheel am I going to swap on, where you have to have 3 or 4 different sets of wheels. These are just going to be fantastic. And for the fact that these wheels come in at $1,049 USD, you're getting a modern set of wheels from a brand that is known to produce OEM level quality of wheels at a price point that is going to be a little bit more ingestible. Is that even a word, ingestible? I don't know, but it's going to be at a price that's digestible for most of the consumers out there. So that is going to wrap up today's video, guys. Big thank you to Yoeleo for sending me out these wheels to test out. I will have a follow-up video in the coming months, but as always, questions, comments, and concerns, please feel free to leave them down below, and I will check you guys on the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.